I was a businessman doing business.
Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me on Strength for Tomorrow Radio. Stuart Thompson here. I trust you're well. Thank you for taking the time out of your week to listen to this show, and if you've subscribed, I really appreciate it. If you've passed it on to friends or families, thank you so much. It really does mean the world to me. It's amazing actually seeing some of the stats each week and all the listens that the show has gotten so far, even though it is quite young. Even the really older shows, like the early shows, the sound quality wasn't the best. And even some of the countries that it somehow made its way to. The latest country it's found its way to is India. So if you're listening from India, welcome. I'm not sure how it got there, but that's the internet for you. Amazing. I'm not sure how the technology is at translating my accent into your language, but hey, that's not for me to worry about today. Hope you enjoyed the show last week whenever we looked at motivation, self-control, goal setting. This week we're thinking about training if you're over 50 years of age. So that is a larger and larger demographic that is starting to train and starting to get stronger and thinking about their health and thinking about their fitness, which is great. So what should you be doing? What should you maybe be avoiding? And some of the reasons behind all of that. So stick around for Joke of the Week. Pleasure as always, and some frequently asked questions will be answered as well. So as we get older, our bodies will change dramatically, and I'm just letting you know that in case you haven't noticed that already whenever you look around at other people. The reality is our muscle mass and our strength decreases from about 30 years of age and onwards, and to couple up with that, we tend to store body fat more easily. Also, to make matters even worse, our joints just don't function like they used to do either. And on top of that, our connective tissue changes its form and it is not as robust and resilient as it used to be. So, what do we do about it? What's the answer? Do we look for the fountain of youth? Do we try and take some ginseng or some of these wacky herbs and hope for the best? Do we get an injection? Do we just take our vitamins? Do we try to get more sleep? What do we do? Maybe it's a combination of those things, but unless we do regular strength exercises, we're going to lose about 5 pounds of muscle and significant amounts of bone mass every single decade of our adult lives as we get into our 30s. So it's not a nice prospect. I'm in my 30s now, so this is to me as well as you if you're listening and you're over 30. And it's not a threat. I'm not like threatening you down the microphone here. I'm just stating the facts. This is what the latest research is suggesting, based upon a lot of different demographics, a lot of different people, and a lot of different types of people as we age. It means our metabolism slows, and this is associated with all sorts of degenerative diseases and issues like diabetes, chronic lower back pain, heart disease, obesity, and various forms of cancer. We've delved into all those things in previous episodes, so I don't want to touch on them too much, but that all increases as we age, unfortunately. Now, there's a great quote here from Mark Rippetoe. It's on his website, actually. I'm just going to fire straight into it. A daily brisk walk, or a jog, or even a 9-minute pace for 3 miles can produce enough cardiorespiratory stress to keep your heart and lungs in pretty good shape. True enough. This, of course, means that it's not a terribly difficult thing to do. For most doctors and for many of their patients, the calculation stops there. But not dying of a heart attack is really just a small part of the much larger picture of an active life well lived. You interact with your environment using all the muscles of your body, not just your heart and diaphragm. And strength is the difference between the things you could do when you're 25 and the things you can't do now. So what Mark Rippetoe is basically saying here, and he's got several books out if you want to have a look at them. He's a great website, and he has some great resources on YouTube as well. But what he's trying to say here is basically that walking about, we tend to think of it as a great exercise for older people, and it's better than nothing, yes, but is it enough to maintain mobility, to restore mobility, to be able to keep getting ourselves up and down off the toilet ourselves, to get up and down stairs ourselves, to be able to navigate uneven ground? Is this enough? However, the great news is that a sensible strength training program can help mitigate against a lot of these impending threats. And this doesn't mean you have to set about trying to lift like a young Arnold Schwarzenegger, or that you'll turn into the Incredible Hulk, some people fear. It doesn't even have to take up an awful lot of your time. Weightlifting is surprisingly time lax, so you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours in the gym. So the National Institute on Aging in America has stated that when older people lose their ability to do things on their own, it doesn't happen just because they have aged. More likely it is because they have become inactive. So that's from a paper that they released, or a document they released, Exercise, a Guide from the National Institute on Aging. So what exercises or what approach should you take? Now, I've completed a certification in training older adults, and while it was useful, I don't think it goes far enough in how best to train older people. Over the years, aging is something that I've been fascinated by, how and why our bodies change so much as we age. What can we do about it? Why do we lose mobility? Why do we lose our independence? And just even what it does to our skin, what it does to our joints, and just the aches and pains that go along with it. I've had the privilege to train many clients over 50 in the last sort of 4.5 years. In fact, I would probably estimate that over 50% of my clientele in the last 4.5 years have been over 50. And that goes all the way up to 80 years of age. So it's quite a range there, about 30 years. And while everybody is different, everybody's got their own unique challenges and needs, everyone has one thing in common, and that is the need for strength. That's the common need. Strength is necessary whether you're in your 20s or whether you're in your 80s and beyond. The degree to which we need strength is obviously different, of course. Everybody needs strength though, otherwise you're going to be lying helpless in a bed or in a wheelchair, or you're going to be depending on somebody else to look after you and take care of you. And obviously this is unavoidable for many people with illnesses and conditions that are not their fault. For many of us, it may well be avoidable, and I certainly would like to try to avoid it, would you not? So how do we increase strength, or at the very least maintain it? The process is the exact same for the 20-year-old, 50-year-old, and 80-year-old. And even if the extent of the results do differ, stress, recovery, adaptation, over and over and over again. We apply an appropriate stressor, we eat, we sleep, we rest, recover, and then adaptation occurs. So we're able to do a little bit more than the time before. And this physiological process, it's the exact same for everybody. And why would it be any different for a 20-year-old as an 80-year-old? We do the same things. Now, we might get slightly different results. That's a given, but it's the exact same process. There's a really common misconception that older people should avoid lifting heavy weights and that they should do more reps instead with less weight. And it's prevalent in many people's heads. If you ask the average person down the street, that's what they'll probably say. If you ask the doctor, that's what they'll probably say. If you ask any media, or you see any media or magazines covering this topic, they'll likely say that thing: do less weight, do more reps. But this should be corrected, and it should be stopped in its tracks. First of all, what is heavy? Heavy is determined by the person doing the lifting. So if you are a 20-year-old young man and you're able to back squat 100 kilos for 5 reps, that might be heavy for you. And this is shown in the fact that if you tried to back squat 105 kilos for 3 sets of 5 reps, you'd fail to get all 5 reps in every set. It'd be just too much for you. You haven't adapted that much. And by the same token, a 50-year-old man might find a 40 kilo back squat heavy if they tried to do 5 reps across 3 sets using the exact same logic. Heavy is relative to you, it's relative to me. The other point that's missing from this discussion is the progressive nature of developing strength for muscles, bones, joints, ligaments, tendons. If I have a 50-year-old client squatting 40 kilos, I'm not going to ask them to back squat 50 kilos if they found that 40 kilo squat tough the week before. I'm not going to ask them to do a 10 kilo jump. That would just be stupid. Likewise, I'm not going to ask a 20-year-old who was squatting 100 kilos last week to squat 115 kilos next week. it's just stupidity. It's really, really stupid, and that's not what I'm saying here when I'm saying we should lift heavy. Lifting heavy does not mean lifting beyond your means. Lifting heavy is relative to where you're at, and it's based upon what you lifted the previous session, whatever date that was, if that was a couple of weeks ago, or if that was yesterday or 2 days ago. If you aren't able to do that, you haven't gotten through the corresponding process of stress recovery adaptation that allows you to get to the point where you're able to lift that weight accordingly. And then with regard to higher reps, if you're doing higher reps just because you're older with less weight, there's a massive issue here as well. Actually, there's several issues. I'm going to go through them. First one is, number one, injuries are more likely to occur from repetitive stress, from repetitive exercises. So you're more likely to, which do you think, if you're going to do 3 sets of 20 body weight squats, are you more likely to injure yourself doing that, or doing 3 sets of 5 reps or 15 reps? 60 reps or 15 reps? Which are you more likely to injure yourself doing? One with weight, one without any weight, or very, very little weight. You're more likely to injure yourself doing more reps than less reps, because you're increasing the amount of chances you're going to have to do that. You're going to have 60 chances to hurt your legs or hurt your knees or hurt your hips or hurt your back doing the 60 reps than you would do the 15 reps at a heavier weight. Other side of it is you're going to concentrate more. If you're under load, you're going to be concentrating those 15 reps a lot better. It's easy to breeze through 60 reps and not really think about what you're doing. Before you know it, your Achilles is tight, ankle sore, knees sore, hips sore. So that's another thing to think about. Second point is, doing higher reps does not improve strength. So if you're doing strength training and you're doing higher reps, I've got news for you. You're not doing strength training. It might improve muscular endurance, it might improve your stamina, but you're not improving strength. Strength is the ability to exert force against an external resistance. If you increase the weight and you're able to apply the relevant force, it means your strength has increased. Okay, so going from doing 60 body weight or air squats to 80 reps or 100 reps, that is irrelevant. Number 3, more reps equals more DOMs, so delayed onset muscle soreness. So we've all had it. If you've ever been to the gym or you've ever done any weightlifting, you're a little bit sore. Older people recover better from lower reps, not higher. If you are banging out those higher reps, you're probably going to be sore than if you put a bit of weight in the bar and you do less reps with heavier weight. Older people do not recover the same as young people. That should be obvious. That's one of the biggest changes. Yes, the process of building strength is the same, but recovery is very, very different. So if you're over 50, you're not going to recover the same as somebody who is in their 20s. So when it comes to training, if you're over 50, there are some training considerations that you need to pay attention to that you maybe didn't have to whenever you were 20 or you were 30. So there's a few things you want to avoid, and one of those things is avoiding explosive movements. Now, just because you can do something does not always mean that you should do something. A good example is if you've been out of the gym for 2 months and you were deadlifting 150 kilos or 100 kilos, whatever it is, and you decide to go back to the gym and you go, right, I'll pick up where I left off. Just because you can do that does not mean that you should go straight in at that exact same lift, because it's probably not going to be the best thing for your training in the long run. You're probably better knocking a few percent off, 10 or 15% off, and just starting to build it up again if you've been away from the gym and you haven't done the exercise in that long. Likewise, just because if you're in your 50s and you used to be able to do box jumps or do something really explosive, it doesn't mean that you should continue to do it. At least if you want to avoid injuries, which most of us, I'm assuming, who are listening do. The problem is, one of the problems is that our explosive power decreases as we age. So if you really want to destroy a 70-year-old man or woman's confidence, just get them to do some box jumps. That's one way to do it. If you want to shatter them, if your dad's giving you, annoying you, go, right, Dad, get out here, let's see if we can do some box jumps. Or your granddad. Most of them will probably not even want to try them, because they're well aware, without you telling them, that their explosiveness that they had in their youth is gone. And it's sad, it is sad, it happens to all of us, we're all going to succumb to it. The explosiveness is not coming back, at least not in a remarkable way where you can get back to where you were in your 20. It's not like strength, is what I'm trying to say. You can start getting stronger, and again, up to a point, once you get to a certain age, it's harder to hold on to it and it's harder to maintain it, but that's the goal, is try and maintain as much as you can as you get into your 70s, 80s and 90s, if you're blessed with those years. It's I know I'm not being pessimistic in stating that either. It's simply a case of human physiology and also the result of observing the aging process in many clients, and other people have observed this as well. That's how we know. The other issue is with performing explosive exercises as we get older is the fact that our connective tissue changes in form as we age. So it's not as malleable, stretchy, resilient. So fascia is quite a famous connective tissue, kind of goes around all your muscles and it holds things together quite nicely. So because that connective tissue is impaired, it's not going to hold together as well. It's not going to be as resilient. So whenever you perform an explosive movement, you're going to increase your chance of picking up an injury or a tear or a this or that, something painful basically. So that's another reason that explosive movements are generally not the best idea as we get older. Something else that you might want to avoid that we already kind of touched on is higher reps. So as I already mentioned, during repetitive exercises, you're going to increase your chances of picking up repetitive strain injuries. It's just the way it is. Muscle endurance for older people, it's surprisingly good. A lot of time that's what older people tend to keep training is, doing light weights, loads and loads of reps, loads and loads of sets. But the muscle endurance that's required to do that, it doesn't really disappear. It's one of the things that stays with us through age. That's how we're able to do things like going for walks, step after step after step. We continue to be able to do that. It's strength that goes down. It's strength that decreases, it disappears. That's what needs to be improved and regained as we age. So doing higher reps with sub-maximal weight is not going to regain strength or even to help maintain it. Your strength is going to keep going down. So it's for this reason that doing lots and lots of reps is not advisable. A few reasons there, but it's just a waste of your time. If nothing else, at the very, very best, it's a waste of your time. And as we age, our time is more valuable. Something else that you might want to avoid as you're getting older, it's movements that require a lot of spinal flexion, especially spinal flexion under load. So things like sit-ups. Sit-ups are a really good example. It makes very little sense if you're over 50, if you're in your 60s and your 70s to do sit-ups, doing full sit-ups, trying to throw yourself up to the top. Don't worry if you can't do that if you're over 50 or 60 because it's probably not the best thing for your spine. If you are over 30, chances are you've probably had some sort of experience with back pain or back ache, and excessive spinal flexion under load, if you're doing weighted sit-ups, is a really, really good way to aggravate your lower back. So something like a crunch or a curl up, like we mentioned in a previous episode, in the back pain episode, that's a much better way to train your abs than doing something like full sit-ups, throwing yourself up there. Look, basically aggravating your back is not a good idea, that's what I'm trying to say. And there's certain things that's going to set that off. So if you can avoid that, you're winning. Many people think that they need to train really hard every day, and I don't know why that is. For some reason or other, that is what they think. And some people cite mental health reasons, and they feel better whenever they train, and I fully get that. I really do understand that. But if you're in your 50s or above, you really do not need to train like a mad idiot. You don't need to train hard and heavy every single day. In fact, you'd be wiser not to. The reason being that your body simply cannot recover like it did when you were 20 or you were 30. Your body cannot recover. You will likely get injured, you'll break down, you'll get riddled with aches and pains. You're just not going to recover in the same way. You don't have the same capacity. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're unfit if you can't recover. All it means is that you're getting older. It's a sad reality we have to face, but that's what this podcast, this episode is all about. You can still move every day. I'm not saying, you have to sit around in between sessions. You can go for walks. You can go for a swim. You can do something lighter. Do something a little bit less intense and a little bit less heavy. And enjoy it. And enjoy the lack of intensity at certain days. Do something that's going to be just a bit more relaxing. And it's going to serve you much better. And you're going to recover better. And you're going to benefit from it from a mental health perspective as well. Something else, and it's a pet peeve of mine that I'm going to advise you ignore and that you avoid if you're getting older, are machines. So it might seem like a strange one, maybe even seems counterintuitive advice. Maybe doctors or physios have told you that you should use machines. I'm telling you not to use machines, and the reason being, well, there's a few reasons, but machines have their place, don't get me wrong, but that place is very, very, very small, and most machines take up a lot of space. So they're generally a waste of time and a waste of space in a gym. And as we said previously, they also stop you from developing as much strength and stability in your joints and your muscle that you otherwise could had you decided to use free weights instead, so barbells and dumbbells, kettlebells, things like that, free weights. And we dealt with this in previous episodes as well. We've talked about that in the strength exercise, training, how strength training makes you better at everything. That episode a few episodes ago. It's for this reason I really do not recommend that older people waste their time on machines. And I'm not talking about rowing machines or spin bikes or ski ergs or things like that. They're fine, and in most cases they're really, really useful for cardio if you want to get a bit of that in. But I just don't recommend that you waste your precious time on it. Okay, it's strength training machines I'm really referring to. I'm referring to things like the pack deck, leg extensions, all those wastes of time. I would avoid them if I were you. You don't have to, but that would be my advice. And the reason being is you're wasting your time. You can get more benefit doing something else. The last one is, for some reason, there's still this pervading myth that older people should not do weights, and that they once they get past a certain point, they shouldn't lift anything heavy again in case they snap, in case they break, as if they're so fragile. I think it's a real shame that this is still in people's heads, and there's still older people who are suffering because of this advice. They're told by certain people that they should focus on their heart health, or do some cardio, swimming, walking, jogging, cycling, rowing, or the elliptical machine maybe. Now, if you want to do any of those things, that is absolutely your business. I'm certainly not trying to tell you not to do them. It's none of my business, as I said. All I am trying to say, and this goes for everything I'm saying in this episode, is that I believe it is a mistake on your part if you avoid weights and revert only to cardio if you are over 50. Why? Well, for lots of the reasons that we're outlining, but a couple of specific ones. As we've already said, strength is what goes down as you age, not muscle endurance. So if you're doing cardio, it's repetitive, and you are, yes, okay, you're getting a good bit of work done, you're getting a sweat up, getting out of breath as a conditioning event, fair enough. But the other reason is, number two, whenever you do strength training, it's also a conditioning event. It's a strengthening event. It strengthens your muscles, your bones, your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, but it is also a cardiovascular event. Whenever you lift something really heavy for 3 or 4 or 5 reps, you're training your heart, you're training your aerobic system as well, you're putting a demand on it, and you build that up gradually. You don't just jump in under the heaviest barbell or the heaviest weight and try and kill yourself under it. You're not trying to do that. Strength training is going to make the best use of your precious time. Strength training kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It means you can get back into the garden, do some gardening. It means you can go visit the grandkids. It means you can just be a man or a woman of leisure, rather than having to spend all of your time doing both of them, doing cardio and doing specific cardio and doing strength work, or just exclusively doing cardio and thinking that's going to get you by. It's better than nothing, but it's still not enough, because as we said, your strength's going down, your cardiovascular health will probably be just fine. And as you build strength, like we said, you're also performing conditioning. You're conditioning your heart and your aerobic system. You're taking care of those things, and those are things that, yes, you need them, but strength, if you can just, why not just do one? Why not just do the 2 things in the one rather than having to do them both? So instead of spending 2 hours in the gym, you only have to spend 1 hour in the gym. Makes sense, right? So if you are a complete novice, if you have never lifted anything before and you are thinking of starting some strength training, if you're in your 50s, 60s and beyond, there are some exercises that I would consider essential for maintaining your independence. This goes into your 70s, 80s and 90s. There are some things that I would recommend that you train, and you train them specifically to try and either hold on to those skills and those strengths, or to get better at and improve them if you've lost them already. As we already said, the older we get, the more muscle and bone density we lose. Okay, so you lose muscle mass and you lose strength, and if you get a knock or a fall, it's going to be much more serious and more difficult to recover from. So if you turn to strength training, you're going to help prevent muscle tissue breakdown. You're going to help prevent atrophy. That's what the technical term for it. Whenever muscle wastes away, you're going to be able to maintain strength, and you're going to be able to improve your balance and joint mobility. So what should you be doing? Some of the benefits of strength training, as we already noted, reduces symptoms of osteoarthritis, diabetes, osteoporosis, back pain, and mental illness, so dementia and Alzheimer's. It reduces the severity of those and helps to deal with them a little bit better. Weight management, improving your sleep quality. I think it's common knowledge, but as we get older, sleeping becomes more difficult. We get aches and we get pains and we get disturbed sleep. So strength training is going to help you get better quality sleep. It's going to help you elevate your metabolism, so you're going to be able to burn more calories at rest. So you're going to be able to speed up that breakdown. You're going to metabolize your food a lot better. As we age every single year, we have less ability to burn calories. So every year your metabolism is slowing. It's unfortunate, isn't it? But that's why whenever you're in your 40s, it's harder to lose weight or to stay in shape than it is whenever you're in your 20s. So if you're in your 20s, listen to this. Make the most of it, is what I would say. Enjoy every morsel of food. But there's a catalogue of exercises. You could choose so many different ones. But I'm going to select just 5 here that I think are really important for almost every older person to adopt and to include in their training program. Now, as is the nature of personal training, some of these might be more appropriate for some people and some might be appropriate for other people. So take it with a pinch of salt, but definitely I think 99.9% of people can benefit from these. They kind of target all the key areas that start the weekend to help provide balance, movement correction, and they can be adapted and made appropriate for you if you have some sort of special issue that you need dealt with. So one of them is glute bridges or hip bridges. Hips, they can become massively problematic as we get older. They tend to become much tighter, they can tend to become weaker. There's so many little muscles feeding through the pelvis and in the hips, and it leads to all sorts of aches and pains and other issues in your lower back and different areas. So glute bridges or hip bridges are a phenomenal exercise to teach your body to rely on the glutes more whenever you extend your hip, and it's not just on, putting the onus on your lower back or hamstrings. A lot of clients that I come across, and this goes for younger as well as older, but we don't know how to use our glutes, we don't know how to activate them, we don't know how to include them in a lot of exercises. So the ability to move them while keeping your spine really rigid, it's imperative. It's a skill that should really be taught, I think, from school, and we should keep practicing until the day we die. And it really does help prevent unnecessary pressure on the lower back and keeps the lower back feeling healthier and happier. So how do you do it? You basically lie down on your back with your feet flat on the ground and your arms be your size. You bend your knees at a 90-degree angle, and you lift your hips, push through your heels, lift your hips up as high as possible without arching your lower back, and you should feel the movement in your glutes mainly, a little bit of hamstrings maybe, but mostly the glutes. The top of the movement, your hips will form a straight line from your knees down to your shoulders, and you can start just doing body weight, test them out, see how it feels. You can start trying to do single leg ones, then you can start trying to add a little bit of weight, set a wee dumbbell or set a barbell on yourself and try and lift the weight as well. So that's a really good one to get you started, and it's one that you can do anywhere. You can literally lie down probably where you are right now, unless you're driving the car of course, and do it on the floor. Second exercise I have selected is high step-ups, and high of course is a relative term. It depends on what you have to work with and also how mobile you are currently, but stepping up and down off of a high step is a skill that really deteriorates as we progress through life. I've noticed it among my clients, and even younger clients sometimes struggle with it, and just restoring that function. A lot of times the muscle strength deteriorates, the loss of balance, coordination, all of those things kind of contribute to making stepping up and down off of things more difficult as we age. But it's such an important skill set, I'm sure you'll agree. It's one which we need, and if we're going to maintain our independence. Whenever we lose all of these things, strength, balance, coordination, it typically results in overcompensation. So we start using the calves and the arms and momentum more than correctly using the muscles to lift ourselves up or let ourselves down. It's a really important skill, and it's an important skill to relearn if you are older. If you've lost that skill, to try and regain that and get that back so you can navigate stairs, uneven surfaces, etc. And you can do it safely. You can do it by yourself and not need someone to give you a bit of a helping hand. So how do you do it? I would start slow, start low. You want to stand about 6 inches away from a box or a bench or a chair, whatever you have to work with. Something that's, it depends on the height of your knee really, but something about mid-shin height. If you're not able to do that, again, just go lower. With all these things, make them adaptable to you. So you want to step up with your entire foot on the box of the bench, and you want to, as I said, you want to make it appropriate to the height of your shin or your kneecap. Avoid leaning too far forward as you go up. Try and balance and try and use the working leg. So that leg you're stepping forward with, you're stepping onto it. Use that leg as much as possible and avoid springing up from your back leg. That's what a lot of people do. And then once you return to the floor, try and do it in a really slow, controlled way and avoid dropping yourself to kind of falling onto the floor, slamming it. You want to make sure you're in control of it. And again, working that leg muscle, building the balance, building that coordination back in. And you want to avoid both feet touching the box at the top, because this, what happens is that it allows you to cheat, and it also helps improve your balance because you're going to be on one foot for a little bit longer. So try and complete all of the movement with that front leg, and you can build in a bunch of reps and a bunch of sets for that one, and then you can also start adding in some weight. So grab something, some sort of a light weight to start with, and then build it up. Once you've mastered body weight, start adding a little bit more resistance. Another area that can become problematic as we get older is our shoulders. Our shoulders tend to become a little bit weaker, and they're generally, the back half of them tend to be more underused than the front half. We tend to get quite short and tight along the front, and if you are, you might see older people and they're all hunched over, and part of the reason for that is that those upper back muscles, the traps and the lats and the rhomboids, a lot of those back muscles are not getting used as they should be. They've been ignored, they've been neglected, and we are always forward facing, so we're always going to be predisposed to rounding our shoulders. So yeah, yes, you have to kind of work on it every day and try and fight back, father time and all of that. But if you have shoulder mobility issues, you're going to start experiencing pain to some degree at some stage. Unfortunately, you want to make sure you're avoiding that and trying to open up your shoulders as much as possible. So one way to do that is through dumbbell rows. You can do this on a bench. It's generally the best way if you have a bench. Something else is quite useful are TRX rows or ring rows. So again, similar movement. You're still getting that posterior deltoid, rhomboids, lats, bit of biceps as well in there, and you're giving them a good bit of work. But whenever you perform the dumbbell row, you want to make sure you're not using momentum. You want to keep your core nice and tight. Use your core muscles to stabilize your spine and stop yourself twisting. So you want to position your standing leg to ensure your hips are level and your torso is facing the floor. It's parallel to the floor. And then you put one knee on the bench, lean forward, support yourself with your other hand, and then you're going to try and pull the dumbbell up. So you're going to try and drag your elbow past your upper back and try and let it down then until you extend your elbow fully. So you want to keep that tension on your back muscles and don't let your body twist or get out of shape. So again, keep your elbow in tight as well. Don't let it flare out to the side, and just lower the weight until your elbow fully extends. So try and do the same reps on both sides and try and again increase the weight as you go through your sessions for that one. Number 4, squats. So squats one of the most useful human movements we can do. It's incredibly important to practice them regularly, to keep our ankles mobile, to keep our knees mobile, our hips, our back. Again, maintain our balance, and as the old saying goes, you either use it or you lose it. Now squats they're kind of as old as man himself. People have been squatting since man was on the earth, and it's an important movement pattern to maintain or to reclaim if you have lost it. If you're in a position now you can't squat to decent depth, you need to try and build that back in, and you need to do it gradually. It's a movement pattern way before it was ever an exercise. So before gyms were ever heard tell of, man was squatting before a gym. So that's why you can't say, I don't like the gym, I'm not going to do squats. Sorry, but you're a human. So squats are they come with the deal, okay? They're part of the package. So it is crucial that you learn to distribute the weight evenly between your hips, your knees, and your ankles in order to maintain healthy joints. You need to try and put the pressure through your foot evenly as well. So how you do it, basically stand with your feet about shoulder width apart, point your toes out slightly, and see where you feel comfortable. Most people a 30-degree kind of angle suits them best. Stand tall, grapple the ground with your toes and with your feet, especially your big toe, your wee toe, and your heel. Hinge slightly at the hips, so you want to have a bit of a break at the hips and then descend by bending your knees. So a couple of important points. Try to maintain your body weight through the middle of the feet, okay? Don't let your heels come off the ground. Don't let all the weight rush onto your toes and your heels come up, because what that does, it puts pressure on your knee joints, which is a bad thing, especially as you start loading up with a bit of weight. Try to push your knees out a little bit. Keep them in line with your toes. Don't let them cave inwards. And you can try and keep your spine as straight as possible. And then as you come back up, squeeze your glutes at the top, but also try not to bend your spine with it. Try and keep your core nice and tight, and try and make sure that you're taking the weight and you're not letting gravity drop you to the ground. That you're taking the weight through your own strength, and you're not dropping and then trying to lift yourself back up. Try and control the descent. So squatting is a really important one. I would say it's one of the most important one, along with the next one. And the next one is deadlifts, or if that sounds intimidating, hip hinges. Hip hinges sound a bit nicer, don't they? Deadlifts are really, really important. They're not something people think that older people shouldn't be doing deadlifting, especially. You shouldn't be doing weightlifting, but you definitely should not be doing deadlifting. But it's such an important exercise to maintain overall strength in your posterior chain. So all those back part of your body, all the back half of your body, all those muscles. As we get on in years, we neglect those muscles. As I said, we're forward-facing creatures, so we tend to work those muscles more and we forget about the ones at the back. It's one of the most practical movements to strengthen this, along with the hip hinges. But the deadlift is called the king of lifts, and the reason for that is you get more muscle activation than any other one exercise. So a faulty or weak hip hinge movement pattern, it can cause all sorts of problems, including, the most common ones, lower back aches, which is what we get. A lot of the time I see people who have back pain and they're kind of scarred with that pain, and what happens is they don't have a good hip hinge pattern. So whenever it comes to things like deadlifts or leaning over, they're afraid of it, and they use their knees more than they use their hips, and they lose that ability, like we said, use it or lose it. They lose that ability to hinge at the hips. So there are numerous varieties of hip hinges or deadlifts, and you can select one according to your injury history or your body mechanics or your skill or your confidence. But the standard deadlift is appropriate for a lot of people, for most people. And again, you just adapt the weight accordingly. As long as you've got the technique down, without any weight, basically, you can start lifting. And no matter what type of deadlift is selected, you want your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower back, rectus spinae muscles, your lats, your traps, rear delts, rhomboids, all of those to be working to some degree or another. If you're ignoring some of those, you're probably not doing a deadlift. You're probably doing something completely different. The technique, you want to use a barbell, and you want to use something that's like you can practice with a dial, you can practice with your brush shaft if you want to, or your mop. Something straight, a straight bar, a straight stick. You want to make sure that you are treating that bar and you're taking it through the correct angles. And the weight should be dictated really by your level of your skill, your experience, your confidence, and your strength. So you don't want to just rush in, lift something really heavy, and then do yourself damage. Start really light. Start literally with an empty bar and try and get that hip hinge movement going. So you want to stand about quite a narrow stance. You want to keep your heels in closer and your toes out a little bit. Ensure the barbell, it's over the center of your foot. You want to brace your core, grab the bar, and you're going to brace your core. So you're going to take a big breath in and push out, expand around your trunk, and then try and slide your hands down the outside whenever you're doing that as well. Your shoulders, you don't want your shoulders too high. You want to have them slightly higher than your hips, and your hips should obviously be higher than your knees. You want to make sure your eyes are staring down at the floor just in front of you, but maybe 6 foot on the floor. Don't be staring up on the ceiling or high up the wall. You want to keep your neck from getting stressed out. Try and engage your glutes and your hamstrings and ensure your back's nice and straight. Take the slack out of the bar, and then you're going to push your feet through the floor to lift it. And your back should look like a straight line, but as you bring the bar up, it should be a straight path. It shouldn't deviate around your knees, or you shouldn't have to take detours on the way up to the top or anything. And you want to make sure that you're finishing the rep by pulling the bar into you at the top. It's one of the more simple exercises, but it's one which people fear the most, I think, because you tend to be able to put more weight on it. So in other words, if you've got your technique wrong, you can potentially hurt yourself. So you want to make sure your technique is sound, as you do with most exercises, but this one, the consequences are perhaps a little bit more daunting if you get it wrong. So you want to make sure you're doing it right. If you're over 50 and you need to know that you are going to lose strength, so you need to do something to maintain it. If you don't do something to maintain it, you will lose it. And these are some of the best exercises that you can do to either build more strength or to maintain the strength that you currently have, depending on your age. You can adjust them, you can adapt them, and you can make them work for you and your anatomy and your current situation. So yeah, give those exercises a go. If you are living in the Warren Point or Mourne area, I don't, as I said, don't shamelessly plug myself very often, but we have a training facility here. We do specialise in over 50s fitness. In the last 4 years, I've been privileged to work with lots and lots of older clients, and lots of them are still with me. Lots of them are still training hard and training well, getting stronger and improving their mobility. And it is very different to training other demographics, in the sense that you have to just tailor things and tweak things a little bit more, but that is exactly why we're here. That's why trainers are about. It's not just like pulling some workout off the internet and then firing away at it. We need to make it suit you, and we need to make sure you're progressing at an appropriate rate and you're not trying to progress at anybody else's rate. You want to make it suitable for you. So from someone who's a complete beginner to someone who used to be active and used to be strong and just wants to get back into it, maybe they have an injury, maybe they've this or that going on, we cater for everybody. So I've had lots of clients, and they've said since they've been training with me, back pain doesn't seem to bother them anymore. Their back feels strong. Strong backs tend to give less bother than weaker backs. Other people have said their hips and their knees feel stronger, feel better, fewer aches and pains. And there's other clients who've had health checkups and their blood pressure, cholesterol has been reduced to healthier levels, and the doctor said their heart is improving as well, their heart health, and also their weight. All of those things, bone density. There's so many benefits that I've had a privilege to experience through older clients and through training them. So if you're in the area, give me a shout. I would love to see if we could help you. And what we work on really depends on you and your goals. But obviously I have, there's certain things that older people are more susceptible to. So I will advise you to do those, but it depends on your goals. Say you're a keen older athlete, you're a masters athlete, and you want to keep running, or you want to keep cycling, or whatever it is you want to do, I will work with you to try and put a program together that facilitates that and helps you to keep doing that. Depends on your training history as well, depends on your injury history, depends on your preferences as well. But and generally, we need to try and focus on several areas if we're thinking generically. So balance, flexibility, and then a bit of light cardio perhaps. Obviously strength as well. So strength is the one that tends to go down, as we already said. Balance, every year, hospitals are full of older patients with broken hips and broken bones from falls. And if you can improve your balance, guess what? You're going to significantly reduce your chances of getting injuries or having falls, and you're going to be more mobile, more independent. You're going to be able to continue to live your life without having to worry about having a fall or breaking a bone. Other thing is flexibility. As we said before, our joints do change with age, and we get stiffer and we get reduced range of motion, and this again increases our chances of niggles, knocks, and all sorts of avoidable injury. So resistance training, if you can do some strength training and some stretching included in that, it's going to improve your range of motion. It's going to improve your flexibility, and you're going to kind of knock those aches and pains on the head somewhat. So yeah, you're never too old to start. You're just never too old to start. As I said before, I had an 80-year-old client training with me before COVID, and he was an absolute pleasure. He was a dream to train. If he's listening, big shout out to Paul. He was such a gentleman, and the improvements, he was so driven, and the improvements that we've seen in that sort of 3, 4, 5 months were incredible. Really, really proud of him and what he was able to achieve. So no matter how old you are, exercise it's undoubtedly, there's so much research behind it. It can improve your quality of life, and you don't have to spend lots and lots of time to do it, to see the benefits and to feel the benefits. Every exercise is going to be adapted to you, your level of ability, and that's no matter what age you are or how old you feel. Maybe you're 80 and you feel like you're 18, which is great. But we can adapt exercises to make them suitable to you. So, like everybody, older people need a little bit of strength training, cardio, flexibility, mobility, balance. We all need those skills, and we need to maintain them. Now, older people, we do tend to get worse at certain things more so than others as we age, as we've said. So we will try and focus on those if we can. But yeah, give me a shout. If I can help you, I would love to help you, even to call in for a chat and see what we can do for you. So this week's joke of the week, it's going to seem quite inappropriate because it was picked out before the topic for today's podcast was picked, okay? But if you're offended, you're offended. Here we go. What do you call a parade of rabbits hopping backwards? A receding hairline. Because we're talking about over 50s fitness today. And yeah, again, send your complaints in. I'll deal with them one by one. Thanks.
Hey, that's pretty good.
And that's the end of another show wrapped up. Thank you so much for joining me, for keeping me company. If you've made it this far, my joke hasn't put you off and made you unsubscribe. Do tell your friends about the show. Do tell your family members if you think this episode can help someone older, whether it's your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncle, your grandparents. Do share it with them. It should help them. I think it can help people. I think there's a lot of things that people need to be aware of, and it's just not out there in the mainstream media. It's not out there in circulation, unfortunately, and even some of the streams of information that should be more reliable, I'm afraid, are not. So if you've enjoyed this episode, if you have benefited from it, or you think someone could, do share it with them. And if you've any questions you'd like answered, do send them in to info@crossfunctionalfitness.co.uk, and I will get back to you and I'll answer it in a future show. I would love to help you out if you have any specific questions. But yeah, until next time, have a great weekend, and don't forget to train today so you can be stronger tomorrow.